All right. Well, hello. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tim Newman, and welcome to our Sittin' In session with the Summer Jazz Room artist. This being the Summer Jazz Room at home this year, due to extraordinary circumstances that need no explanation at this point. Um, we're very lucky to have, for this interview, Richard Tardo Hammer.
That's right.
A pianist and in this case, a band leader leading his own trio who's going to play a set immediately following the airing of this interview, which is actually an interview at home. The Summer Jazz Room this year will be recorded in the Shea Center of Performing Arts, but will be broadcast to your homes. That's the home. But in this case, for the interviews, we're talking about Tardo's home and my home. And we're lucky that the technology has enabled us to continue the Sittin' tradition that we have at William Patterson. So I'd like to welcome Tardo. He's played as a sideman with many notable jazz musicians, many, Junior Cook, Lionel Hampton, Art Farmer, many others, and accompanied many well-known singers. We can get into that a little later. In this setting at the Jazz Room this year, he's bringing a trio in. It's great to talk with you today, Tardo, and welcome to Sittin' In.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, man. So let's work backwards. So you're doing trio now. How long have you been doing trio?
Well, I guess since Sharp 9 asked me to do a trio recording, I think that was in the 90s. So it was more a thing that I was doing for recording at that point, and then gradually I started doing more gigs as a leader, a trio
Right.
I started getting more of an idea of how I wanted to do things if I were the boss.
Right.
Yeah.
What is that like? I mean, how is that different from not being the boss?
Well, you get to play the melody. You set things up the way you like them. My bosses are very good, but they're power instrument players. They play tenors and trumpets. Now, I'm not talking about the vocalists, because that's a whole other thing. Actually, so I guess I get to meet in between. I get to power up like the horns, but I get to find a little lyrical side like we learned from playing with the vocalists.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are your bosses now when you're out, other than the trio?
Well, we lose a lot of them, but right now Grant Stewart is still kicking, going strong. He's got a new recording out that's rapidly going up the airplay charts, and that's a good example of a guy who can really power up. And then I'm going to hang on for my life. Warren Vache, sometimes. Those are the two that are still alive and kicking right now. I think there's some others that I'll probably think of in about 3 seconds.
Sure. No, that's right. You came out to a couple of years ago to William Patterson with Warren, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about, our generation, because I've known you for way back to the Augie's years in the 1980s, and we're kind of the age where we got to kind of really be able to get next to some of the greats of this music who helped to make the music what we know and love of the music, and who were some of the others that you worked with or played with or were mentored by over the years that really affected you?
Bill Hardman. So Bill Hardman and Junior Cook, I worked with that group. That stuff was in the late 80s, and that was the beginning of my finishing school. To really learn some of the things that these guys would educate you in very few words, more with how they conducted themselves, how they played their instruments, or what they would maybe tell you not to do, that kind of stuff. Kind of editing. Vernel Fournier, the drummer, was one of those. He hired me to play in his trio, which was amazing, and he took me to Japan for 8 weeks to play with him and Victor Sproles. So that was amazing.
And I can imagine, him, as the fact that he was the drummer in the famous Ahmad Jamal trio.
Yeah.
That did he expect you to play in that style, or was he looking for something like that?
He was
How
a
about
little, well, you know, like most things that I've done in my life, I wish I had another shot at it, knowing what I know now. But I knew what I knew then, and I would say he wasn't. He would not ask me to do things that I couldn't do. So I was more of a straight-ahead sort of bebop style player at that time. But he liked my playing, and he encouraged me to move in certain directions. Like one thing he said is that playing in 2 is more free than playing in 4, which was counterintuitive to me at the time. But he played that way, and I grew to understand what he meant. He would encourage me to play intros and to be free with the format of the trio so that you could go into a vamp. You wouldn't have to talk about it beforehand.
Right.
He would like to, you know, put in these little vamps in between choruses, and then he said it's like shifting gears of a car. You would get into the next chorus, and you would be at another gear, another level.
Nice.
So, and he could play these things to you as easily as talk them, to speak about them. I mean, he could really teach you on the bandstand. I'm sure I could think of a dozen other things, but those are 2 that come to mind. So, would it nudge you in the Ahmad Jamal direction? Yeah, I mean, he wanted one thing. He wanted to play Quasimodo, but he wanted me to play it in block chords, like almost like George Shearing. That was his idea. It's not something a piano player would think of off the bat because it's strange. It's kind of a intricate line that jumps around a lot, and it's not something you would think of that you would play in block chords. But I'd have to try it. And again, if I knew what I knew now, then I'd have maybe some other ideas about how to do it. But that was a way of helping to get the piano player to orchestrate on the piano, to be more orchestral, which is like Ahmad Jamal.
Right.
Yeah.
And the form as well with the interludes and stuff. That's something that he did on some of those famous recordings.
Yeah. Well, you know, he felt like he invented the poinciana beat, Vernel.
Right.
And he did. And he felt like he didn't really get rewarded considering what a hit it was.
Right.
So sometimes he was trying to recreate that magic. So he had some other tunes that he wrote that would have that beat or another interesting beat. He wrote in 5/4. Here's an interesting thing. Vernel wrote in 5/4, and I was not that comfortable. Again, I told you I was kind of just a 4/4 bebopping guy at that time. He said, no, I don't count it in 5. I count it in 4. And he would just say, you know, you start to think, da, 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 da. And he'd be like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd be like, wow, I can't do that. I still can't do that. I guess he could feel 5 right against the 4.
Wow. So he would put 4 beats in the space of you would be counting 5 and he would put 4 in.
I think that's what he was doing. It was beyond me. I think that's what he was doing. Yeah.
Interesting.
I kind of thought he was a crackpot about that one, but you know.
What pianists did you like learn at the right hand of or left hand of?
Right. I've always been a little too shy to approach the people that I admired that much and ask them questions. But they were nice to me, kind of, or competitive. But, you know, Bradley's was still going. So it was no big deal to go there 5 nights a week. There was no cover charge. It was the price of $1.25 beer.
Right.
And at that time, that meant you could sit for 5 hours. And it would be Hank Jones one night, Tommy Flanagan one night, Roland Hanna one night, Jimmy Rolls another, Walter Davis. I'm going to leave out a lot, but Kirk Lightsey, Larry Willis, just great and intimate. I mean, you could watch them. I mean, prior to that, even when I was a teenager, you could hear old piano players in bars around New York City. You could get in and you could look at them. You know, I mean, that's as a beginner. You say, hey, wait, I'm playing every note of every chord in my left hand, and they're not, and they sound much better than me. Why?
Right.
You know, you could really see that.
Right.
So I didn't have any... Barry Harris, of course, was always teaching, so I would sneak by his little classes occasionally and pick up what I could pick up. So that's as close as somebody actually explaining something as I would get from any of those adult piano players.
Right.
Yeah.
That in many ways is the traditions of learning, of mentorship is just kind of watch, listen. Maybe I show you something, but basically pay attention to what I'm doing and see how I react in different situations. And people respect that you show up to,
Right.
it's like they see the same face in the audience, or turn around and you're looking at them, night after night, and they'll say, yeah, well, this person is really interested.
Yeah, now that I'm older, I can understand that they were pleased and heartened to see young musicians, especially the distance between those generations. I mean, the guys I admired, they wore suits all the time. My generation was a bunch of long-haired T-shirt looking hippies.
Right.
Right. So
if Hank Jones were here now, he'd be wearing a suit for this.
Right.
And
So
look at us,
Right. So that was a bigger reach than I feel at my age, running into some 20-somethings now. I feel like we're closer. There's less of a divide, but nonetheless, I can see how I didn't realize at the time that it was special to them that young musicians cared and had that level of interest. I don't think they realized how great and how important they were to us.
Right.
I don't know if that's part of their program.
I don't know. I think they must have done it with their mentors to some degree.
But those generations were shorter.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Charlie Parker was 10 years short of Lester Young and that kind of thing.
That's right. So there wasn't such a generation.
It's kind of spread out.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I see your point.
I mean, I'll jump along if I could. A couple other guys that Lou Donaldson, and somebody made me sit in with him. I was scared of him, and he took my number, which I thought, yeah, great. And then a few weeks, I don't know, a phone rang. It was Lou Donaldson, and I thought it was, a lot of people like to do Lou Donaldson imitations. So I thought it was John Weber or something like that, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I played it pretty close. I said, "Yeah, you are." Well, what do you want? And he said, "No." And I came to believe it really was Lou Donaldson, and he called me for some gigs, which was really nice because Lou was very standoffish and very supportive in another kind of way, but very old school, like, all right, man, just walk away, kind of ignore you, but he really was paying attention.
Right. Right.
So that's another one. And he taught me about pacing, because I really wanted to go in and fire it up from tune one and burn through it. He's like, that's not how you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Junior Cook, I remember playing with Junior at Augie's again, and going in there and like trying to and playing everything I knew in the first two choruses of the blues or whatever. Yeah. And he took me aside and he said, he made some analogies. I can't repeat now.
Not now, yeah.
Not now, but they were very apt, and they were very. They made their point. He said you can't rush things.
Yeah.
In situations, if you want to have the desired results,
that's right.
Rush things,
Yeah, all those guys were very supportive, and I didn't expect it. I thought they were tough, great players that didn't need to be kind, but they were. Right. They're very kind, very supportive guys. C. Sharp was another one, Clarence Sharp. Great, kind of unheard guy because he didn't record that much.
Right. He's kind of a musician's guy, New York musicians.
Yeah. Great alto player.
Where did you grow up? Did you grow up around the city?
Yeah, we were on Long Island, and we were in Ohio for a little while, and I guess by the time I was 16, my parents were in Manhattan. So, and at that time, I could get served a drink in a jazz club at age 16. I looked like I was 14, too. It was not like I had, stubble yet or anything. But it was a different city.
Right.
I could go see, I remember seeing Bill Evans. I had only been to a few rock concerts in stadiums. And I went to the Village Vanguard on a Wednesday, and I was like, I could sit there, like one table away from Bill Evans, and just have a beer and watch and listen. It was amazing.
No, New York it's a very different place now, and
and
it's nice that there's still a lot of the young players that come to New York and settle around New York and come to school there, create an environment. But the fact that things have changed so much in terms of the economy and in terms of the viability of being, of jazz clubs and being able to keep one open, the expense of keeping one open at this point is so difficult. But in those days, there was really a scene, And of course, when it was happening, we didn't realize it. But now, when
Yeah.
we talk to students now, and we I saw Dexter Gordon when he came back from Europe in 1978 or whatever.
Right.
It was. And they would, they're like their eyes drop out of their head. It's like
It's amazing.
But
the fact that they're playing a third set, because it was 3 sets a night, 10,
That's right.
11:30, and 1 a.m. So
And 1.
Wednesday night there was a 1 a.m. set at the Village Vanguard, and like I said, there might have been 6 people in there. So the guys weren't getting paid. Like now, the businesses have learned to really like put up the rope, get them in, get them out, and the musicians. I mean, I can't say now because there is no club business, but up until very recently, and musicians could potentially get paid a little better than what was going on then.
right, and then some of them actually pay into union.
Yeah.
Part.
Yeah, it was
contracts
probably.
and stuff.
So you take the good with the bad. They were probably scuffling a little harder then in the 70s. This is probably late 70s into the early 80s.
Right.
I mean, jazz musicians were scuffling. I mean, there was
Right.
so.
You make some money on tours, though, I think.
Yeah.
Or a little bit if you could. I mean,
But their loss was our gain. We got to sit up right close
right.
and
Right.
get some education. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, who are you bringing in?
Lee Hudson will be playing bass and Steve Williams on drums. Let's see, Lee. So we've recorded my last 2 CDs are with them. Lee, I know forever. You probably know him forever. He's played with he played with Dizzy and Illinois Jacquette and a bunch of people. He's kind of a piano player's favorite because you can just about play any tune, obscure, any key, and he kind of knows it. I don't know how he knows it, but probably because he's been playing with piano players, duos, trios for many, many years. So, good, natural-sounding bass player. I like the way he takes a nice trip with his bass line. He's a walker, but he's not a boom, 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 boom. He's not a predictable walker. He kind of can go find, like Paul Chambers, go find some notes that you wouldn't think you should put on the downbeat of a measure, and he makes them work.
Right.
When music gets very interesting for me, is when
Right.
everybody's taking a little trip.
Right.
Steve's the same way. Steve plays unexpected things without pulling the rug out from under you, and is playing like an improviser too. So, we'll get a groove together, but it's not a beat, like a predictable beat groove. And Steve, of course, he's popular with a lot of us because of his touch, which he got a lot of by working with Shirley Horn for many, many years. So he could play whisper quiet. I always say you can hear yourself think when you play with Steve. Just kind of, drums don't always have a beautiful sound, but his do when he plays, his touch, not the physical drums, his actual touch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you? What school are you of the set list, or because I know there's various ways of going about it. Some people just start playing and the band follows. We had Barry Harris here a couple years ago with Larry McKenna. The first time they played together, and Barry would just launch into something and they'd just join as if they've been playing for 20 years together.
Well, I guess under normal circumstances, I love to go to a gig blank, meaning like, and it's something that used to make me very nervous. Like, I don't have an idea what tune I can actually play, convincingly. And I'd find that the gigs would go best that way. Because what sounded good at home or last week or in the practice room, often, I think the students at your school will attest to this, it doesn't always go the same way. Like, preparation is great, but your preparation has to allow for the fact that things are going to be different when you get there. And, for example, recording date. Maybe you need 8 or 9 tunes, I don't know, to make a session these days. I'll prepare 12 because I know that 3 aren't going to fly that day, and I don't know why. But you've been there. You've been in the studio, and you've been hitting the same thing, and that sounded great yesterday. And you're just hitting it, and you're like, boy, I'm beating a dead horse today, and I don't know why that tune just died in my hands. I killed it or something. So, at any rate, my favorite way to set up is I don't know what I'm going to play. Right. And find it. And usually you get what you're supposed to play. But we've not been playing every week. We've not been getting.
Right.
We're a little more. So I'm going against my usual things, and I have sort of a set list. In fact, there was a reporter for Jersey Jazz who's going to write about this, and he said, "Do you have a set list?" And I said, "Normally I wouldn't, but I kind of do." And what it means is a long list of things, of which I will play some of those things.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Now I'll do this. We have some stuff that I wouldn't call it fall back on, but we have some favorite repertoire that we play a lot, and it develops as we go. So we add little shout choruses or little trading riffs, and so they're not the same every time, but they're things that we do very regularly because we always take them a different way. So we'll probably do a lot of those.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, it's a very scary thing to leave yourself unplanned. I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on the type of individual you are, but I mean, I of course like as an administrator, and I have to plan things out and
Yeah.
write things down and make lists and to let go of that and to trust that what is going to come out. It's going to come out anyway. But I mean, even for this interview, I could have written down a long list of questions.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I just kind of thought a little bit about it beforehand. I had a few little things in case of some dead air, but it's not like and I'm sure the interview is hopefully it's better, spontaneously,
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, so, right. So what do you, how have you been dealing with the COVID situation and musically? I mean, we're trying to. Hopefully, this is not like the eye of the hurricane passing overhead and with this concert, and then we all have to retreat back into our little holes. And things will open up more. And I know there's some people have been out playing. But what have you been doing to kind of keep yourself together musically in this period?
Well, at first, when we were really locked up, it was just me and my 12-year-old clarinet playing son. And he doesn't play any jazz, but he was letting me play the accompaniment. He was playing some Mozart and Brahms and stuff. And it was giving me. It's funny. I mean, I think maybe the piano parts are harder than the clarinet parts, but I was really scuffling with them.
Yeah.
Well,
Brahms,
with some and they're
three and all
they're beautiful. So it gave me a little something where I had to shed. I actually had to practice a little bit to play the parts and not humiliate myself with my 12-year-old. So that was the first range. I have a little extra time in the day that I'm not spending in transit, and that does translate into some extra practice time, which is nice. It's strange not having things to practice for, but that's that. And then teaching has sustained pretty well. I mean, it's summer now, so it's pretty quiet. But I still have some summer class and some private students. And I was impressed with how well most aspects of teaching translated to an online thing, because I was very skeptical.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I found that among the faculty at William Patterson as well.
Yeah.
That people were pushed outside their comfort zone suddenly and had to pivot really quickly.
Yeah.
But people did find that, wow, this worked better than I ever thought. And one faculty member said, my students are teaching me everything I need to know about teaching online. And
that's right. They know how to do it.
And it's actually, a great way of interchange, so that
it's not bad. We have to be more organized, because in a live lesson I can say, hey, do it this way, like we were talking about the traditional, what you get from your mentors on the bandstand or in real life, a few words here and there, playing something, it goes like this, ba 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 ba.
Right.
Here I have to, and it's more labor intensive. Like a lot of times I'll get off a lesson or a class and I'll have to go to work and produce some sheets that illustrate or reinforce what I was saying and make sure I send it out to everybody, because I didn't feel like it got hardwired as it might have in person.
Right.
Right. So it was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's extraordinary times that we're living through. Who would have predicted this?
Wear face masks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not. We're in our homes, but for anybody who's watching, we're wearing them.
Right.
Because we don't know, but it's very possible if everybody did this, we might get through this in 2 months.
Right.
get through a big ugly thing. So
Right.
please do.
Well, there you have it. Some wise words from
Yeah.
the Tardo Hammer, who has been lovely enough to spend a little time chatting with us here, and it's great to see you.
Yeah,
Tardo
man.
and I used to be neighbors and spend some time on the playground with our kids together, and
Yeah.
those days are past. But it's great that that you're able to come, and thanks for coming
Yeah.
and doing this recording for us, and it's not very nice to talk with you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
please, to the listening audience out there, enjoy the set that's coming up, and this will be aired on Tuesday night, the 21st. But I want to remind you that we have jazz the remainder of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday, Alexis Cole and Friends. Thursday night is Akiko Tsuruga and her quintet. And then on Friday night, Steve Charay and Friends. So please tune in. If you need to register, wppresents.com is where you need to go to register for these concerts. So thanks again, Tardo, and we'll be hearing you and hopefully seeing you around soon.
See you soon. All right.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.